Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
And I know that Russ sent out information ahead of time, or Pam did, that we got some information. I have. Go ahead, Janet.
Question yesterday about the 79E. And so I threw something together quickly just so that people knew what properties were in the 79E. I don't have a lot of information. I don't receive what I should. Big surprise. So, like Mario's building, which I believe is like 85 Water Street. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I have nothing on that.
Right. So we want to start with 79E and dive into this, because I had some questions for you too on this, Janet.
Well, I think
On the 79E.
Yeah.
I think 79E might be something that's kind of taken off
Might be.
the plate.
Well, shall I start on that so I have a good idea what's going on?
Why don't we do that? Why don't we start with 79E? You can give us an update, and then we'll talk about the information.
Okay, 79E, for people that are out there that don't know what it is, it's basically a tax program that if the investor goes in and he can apply for it and it's done inside of a building, and if he's putting an X amount of money into it, it'll stay at the assessed value for, it could be 7, 9, 5, depends on what they meet for criteria. Up there, the boss is
Sorry.
Hey, you want to sit over here, Chris?
No, I'm fine.
Because she can't see us, so she can't see
Couldn't
us.
see me in the seat, so I moved. Yeah.
Oh, you're ready to give me your seat.
So we started, and we're just diving into. He's giving us an update on 79E.
Oh,
So,
See a smiling face.
how you feeling?
I'm okay.
Good.
I will.
Sure, if you were coming up.
Yeah, it wasn't, I was having some problem with my knee today, so I was a little slow, sorry.
Okay, so anyway, the 79E, it can last for 5 to 9 years, depending on what they qualify for. And it's a program when you're in bad economic times, it can work out pretty good. But when you're in good economic times, it can cost the town a lot of money. And it's been something that, unfortunately, I wanted to bring that up with the committee quite a while back, because that's one of our calls, but unfortunately, I was not able to do that because we had our first meeting and then I had to have the citizens petition in before our second meeting. So I had to go ahead and I couldn't call anybody because I'd be in violation of 91A. So I couldn't even get anyone's signatures, or I know you have a vested, you're quite knowledgeable on it, so I couldn't even call you and say, well, could you give me more information on what you think about this?
I think we can call each other individually, can't we, to talk? No?
To
To have like a conversation one-on-one? We can't have one-on-one conversations?
I
no,
don't
you
think
can't
so.
because you get a quorum.
Oh.
So, because there's only 4 people, 2 constitutes a quorum, so you can't do it. So anyways, so I went ahead, put in the citizen petition to eliminate it, which I was looking at a lot of the stats. Matter of fact, Jenna gave me a lot of the stats on that, a lot of the information, and we're finding that a lot of the prices in Exeter, for example, up on Water Street on the Ioka, they did get one, and unfortunately, the building probably should be about $10 million when it's done. Would you agree with that, Janet?
Yeah, at least, yeah.
So we're looking at like $175,000 that could be bringing in, which is going to be bringing in about $10,000 for the next. Oh, you gave us a date on that. That was what, for another 9 years?
Right now, it's assessed at like, I don't have my own report in front of me.
I've got basically 360 round it up.
So, right, and it's gonna stay approximately that value for the next 9 years.
Yeah.
So anyway, because of that, you start looking at Exeter itself. What's been going on? Well, Franklin Street, every condo that was built is assessed for over $900,000. Every one of them. So it's we don't really need it right now in this town because things are too vibrant. You can't even find the property, and the things are selling at a high price. And so when I brought it even to the selectmen, they kind of agreed with it, figuring if we ever need this again, we can bring it back up. But right now, it is taking a lot of money from things that we could actually be using on other things.
Yeah.
So
The thing was, 79E was, one of the reasons it was put in place, it was for downtown revitalization. And it was because the problem is when you have, now I think of downtown, I'm not talking about the condos. I think of downtown, and when I was doing this, we were thinking of the business strip, and it's very hard to compete as a business in a downtown. That, and one of these things brought it up was when everything moved away to big box, and it's also to even build them downtown. So if you want to go down and like you see down there, and they're trying to do, construction, they've got to, they're paying for police details when they have to have, a crane come in or all that other stuff. So it's more expensive to do a build or a rebuild or remodel, whatever. It's more expensive it's very hard for business to make money. So 790 was really to help these, because most downtowns don't look like ours. If you go around the state of New Hampshire or anywhere, you'll see very looking downtowns. We're an anomaly, but although we still have, had a few, struggles. But that being said, when I was doing it, when I was working with communities, it was really focused on downtown. It's not a housing. It's not for housing. It's really for just that downtown, and everything was always, business on the bottom and housing, could be housing above. So it wasn't for housing. It's not a housing incentive. Not for, when I'm saying housing, I mean in general, like a housing community. It was, for a downtown, which we're talking about businesses, typically with housing above, because the housing is what really pays for the business to be there. Because the business isn't typically going to make enough money to justify the cost of the building. It's that steady income from the housing above. It's kind of like how they make the financing work.
Right. As a contractor, because that's why I've been all my life, I think the programs could be a very solid program.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning years when you're putting out tens of thousands, and now it's hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
It's good to be able to keep everything stable. But the thing that bothered me about the 79E, and I never realized, is the transfer of that credit will go to someone who buys it. So now we're
Yes,
looking.
that wasn't supposed to be transferred.
Yeah, well, it is, and
And I'm
unfortunately.
sorry, I didn't have time to, I was gonna reread it, and then my daughter showed up, Mom, help me with my taxes. But, it wasn't supposed to transfer.
So if the,
It was supposed to, like, if you sold it, it died when you sold
if the
it.
select board put in the contract upon transfer, it goes away,
Yeah,
would. They did not.
he chose not to, okay.
So the
That's-
same would be, I haven't seen Mario's contract, I haven't seen Woolworth's contract. I should have, I haven't. But regardless of that, whatever that says, because Mario is putting apartments above, Woolworths has apartments above, they could condominiumize that and sell them.
Yep.
And the new people would get those credits.
Yeah, I'm not happy with how it's being done, because we would have, like, for instance, in summers where someone would come in and they say, listen, I have this building, I would like to buy this building. And I have a specific example. It was a dump, they painted the windows black, so you couldn't look in. It wasn't up to code, and nobody was gonna touch it. I mean, Summersworth wasn't doing well in the beginning. In the first place, it only had one story above, so it's only one apartment. And, we have multiple levels, you can have multiple apartments, and it's funny. The guy came in and said, listen, I'm gonna own this, I'm gonna keep it, I'm gonna, gonna get a business going, I'm gonna make a nice apartment upstairs, and, and I'm gonna keep it, and he did. And that was part of the deal. You can't just get the credit, clean it up, and then flip it. And then next person comes in, who knows what they're gonna do with it, So it wasn't intended for that. So I don't think it's being used properly. And also, there's no, as far as I know, required minimum. Like you said, 5 years. We were talking when I was in Durham doing this, maybe 2 years or whatever. So, what I'm saying is it seems like the maximum is just given out every time. And a lot of it's supposed to be like for historic preservation, things like that. Like, you have to spend a lot more to get those additional years, not just being a building that was historic.
So can we get an update on where you're at with that petition? Because it's
Oh, it's all in, it's going to be on the warrant. And I think the other thing that really comes
So by
out,
the next time we meet, we'll know.
we'll know if
Can you,
it's,
just because we're on a public session, can you explain the petition, just in case anybody doesn't know?
well, the petition basically is just going to stop the program. And even when I went to the selectmen's meeting, it seems that they're all in favor of that. And that even Dan said that if we need it again, we can always reinstitute it. And I think if they were to do it again, they'd probably look at some of these things that you speak about and maybe fine tune it a little bit. I mean, there's certain things you got to do because it's state, but then you can still do other things because the town can put their input into it too. And the other thing I found that it kind of bothered me is a couple of projects that were going on that did get it. But they were going to do it either way.
Yeah.
But it's just a little more gravy, so why not? And I don't blame them.
Yeah.
I don't blame anybody. I don't blame them using it as a marketing tool or.
Yeah.
But it's just that I just think it should go away right now.
So
Well, that's part
how,
of the vetting process too. It's a shame because I think it could have been kept and you don't have to give it away. You can say no with this. We reserve this for people to say this project is not feasible financially without this credit, not just I'd like it
I
too.
think we're all in agreement that
Yeah, I
it's the
think
right
so.
move to make, but I guess my next question is, does it impact anything that's in place now or no?
No.
You basically have to ride all of this out.
Those who have it have
It
it.
would just stop
Oh, yeah.
future projects from.
Just
Yeah. I guess what my thought was is just that I hate to throw the baby out the bathwater. If there is some potential redevelopment that, could happen that we'd like to hang on to it for. I mean, there's no reason why you can't say no. That's all I'm saying.
But unfortunately, they don't.
Well,
And that's the
Yeah,
problem.
the other thing that,
so that's the only way they're gonna say no, is if you take it, they're saying it too? We can't say no, so
Well,
take it away? We're okay with that?
Everyone that applied, they get it. So, I mean, we're looking at people who shouldn't get it. And
Maybe there should be a committee to review 79E
I
before it
really,
goes to
I
select
think,
board.
I think if it comes back, it should definitely be reviewed.
Janet, wasn't that on the Housing Advisory Committee's purview to review they were reviewing it. They were
yeah,
reviewing
I
the
don't know
terms
if
of
they
it.
actually made a recommendation, but I know Russ mentioned at
Yeah.
our last meeting that they were
Yeah.
probably gonna make a recommendation that if it including a housing component, that it be affordable.
But at this point, it's gonna be on the ballot for a
Right,
warrant article, so.
right. So
I also believe the select board has learned a lot over the past few years. CDOG was, that worked out okay. It wasn't a lot of money lost because they were already half done. But because of that, it shouldn't have been accepted, because obviously they were gonna do it whether they got the credit or not.
Yeah.
exactly.
That is supposed to be a criteria.
And the big criteria, they're supposed to apply for it before they start construction.
Yeah, well, no, that they wouldn't do it without the credit.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Anyways, I think it's something
I
that,
have to vacate for a minute.
Yeah.
No,
I think
it's-
I think it's a wonderful tool
Yeah.
if implemented properly.
exactly.
Yeah, I'm sorry to learn, years later what was going on, because honestly, when I was doing this, I would meet with, someone would come in, I'd sit with them and say, what are you looking at doing? Why do you want the credit? And I would vet it, and then I would, share it with the planning director, and he would, say, yeah, I agree with you, or I don't, and then we would take it to the council. I didn't just say anybody who wants to redevelop, we're gonna give it to you, because that's just not what it was for. It was for helping make it happen.
And we do have contractors that have called me saying, Jerry, if you find anything in the 79 need area, let me know. I'd be interested in buying it. I mean, that's what we're going to.
Yeah,
And so what we're looking at, there are some good things to it, but it's going to be implemented in a different manner. Because I just, all these people are buying buy $1 million condo, you pay $1,000 a year for taxes.
so if it doesn't, and if it stays, people say keep it, and the sad thing is a lot of people don't understand it. So I hate when people vote with something they don't understand, and nor should you be able to understand everything that's out there. I get that, I certainly don't. But if we keep 79A, I want to make a big push for looking at how things are reviewed and what the understanding is, what should be approved and for how much, because you don't have to give any certain amount. You shouldn't. We can
certainly look at this next month.
Well, this is a charge of this committee. So if it passes and it's eliminated, it can be
it can be brought back.
It can be brought back, but it can be brought back. A committee like this could actually sit down and say, this is the way it should be formulated. This is what should happen, and it can be brought back to the people to vote on it in a different manner.
Yeah.
And to me, that would be an acceptable thing.
Yeah.
Because right now it's to have someone,
Mismanaged.
it's kind of being abused.
Yeah.
And that's not what it was meant to be.
No.
And when you look at 2014, we're coming out of recession, times were different.
Oh yeah, and I'm on the budget committee,
And
and we're crying over every dollar, and you can't make enough cuts because the health insurance costs,
Everything's going up.
and there's still needs and there's still expectations. People are like, I pay a lot of taxes. Why? We expect some services, and I get it. And so we can't be throwing it away. So.
no, and then you could look at how
Which
much.
is why I'm on this committee, because I don't
And it's going to be looked at correctly.
Yeah, so we can bring it up after, we'll see what happens in March, but no matter what down the road, I think we could bring it back up.
Yeah.
For sure. I want to also say that last week too, we weren't here last week. I think we agreed that we were going to focus on the elderly exemption first.
Yeah, the biggest
Yeah,
hit.
so-
Yep.
I know, I don't know if there was, I got the packet from him, but I didn't see an agenda, but I don't know if everyone's had a chance to go through everything that was in there. I printed off the exemptions between 2023 and 2024. I just want to explain to you what I asked Russ to put in the packet. One is an article that I came across in the paper about Portsmouth having conversations, again, looking at theirs. I just thought it would be an interesting just to see that other people are having similar conversations.
Which is one of the things I always like to do, is kind of look around
Yeah, like
the
what
area.
they're doing.
And the thing that surprised me about that is they last adjusted theirs same time we did, 2008.
Yeah, I saw that too.
And they used inflation as their basis for making their new adjustments. Inflation for the past year, for something that hadn't been adjusted in over 15 years. So I would hope that we're going to do a little bit more of a little bit more data crunching.
Yeah, just.
Because we have plenty of data, so.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I did my budget, what my budget is, because I think there's a lot of towns that just throw money at it. And when I was asked people, well, how much you spend a month, well, how much money do you need a month to live on? And no one has an answer. I said, well, how can you come up with something logical, like how much you're gonna,
I think that was
so that's why when I did mine, I was like, my God, I don't.
part of my interest in this committee was the elderly, because as I've seen it in the town that I used to live in and in other towns, it seems to be, when it gets adjusted, the amounts are arbitrary. They're just, the Board of Selectmen or whoever makes the adjustment and then brings it to the voters.
Yeah.
And I would like to have something that's a little bit more, has a little bit more foundation to it.
Yeah, not
A
willy-nilly.
little more analytical.
Yeah,
Agreed.
the second thing that I put in there, because when I think about Exeter and I think about comparison towns, I think about the areas around us that are big business drivers. And I think about Exeter and I think about Hampton. So I took a look at Hampton's just to see what their limitations were on exemptions. I don't know much about when they implemented this, but it was very interesting to see that they were significantly higher than we were as the amount of exemptions. I'm not sure when they did this.
I believe they did it last year.
Was it last year?
I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure it was last year they increased it.
Yeah, and I think
A high threshold or a high number of
I think
Well, this is just the this is the amount that they reduce for, this is the amount of the exemption given for the age brackets, where we're at 152 here, we're at almost 184 for the middle bracket, and we're at 236 for the 80 plus. So
And if you looked at some of the census data that Russ provided at our first meeting, I just kind of looking at it, not really crunching any numbers. Hampton comes probably the closest to Exeter
Absolutely.
out of all the towns that were included there, both in terms of the age distribution with a high percentage of elderly, and the income.
What about the housing costs?
So
I think similar.
yeah,
You
they are.
know, the one thing on what you said over the last 20 years that you got from Janet, we have fewer exemptions now than we had a few years ago, by quite a bit few. So, and that I thought was, I went back all the way down, and I'm saying, well, that's kind of odd, because I remember back when I was looking at this years ago, and how much money we were spending, we actually don't spend much more than we used to spend.
No, I thought it
Do you
was
find
pretty
that
good,
true, Janet, as far as what?
Yes, yep. I think the big thing is that Social Security goes up every year, but it only goes up minimum. So people keep on qualifying even as they get older.
Yeah.
People also die. So
Yeah.
you have that, or they move,
Right.
Yeah. And if you look at I really liked this report between the 2023 and 24 exemptions, because I was going to go through and do some data crunching and I did not, I'm sorry. But I look at this and I can actually, based on the assessed value, I can tell that a significant amount of these are manufactured housing. There's just no way that anything under $100,000 is probably.
Yeah.
So the other thing we have to think about is the amount of manufactured housing we have in Exeter, which is far greater than they have in Hampton. So.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Yeah, it
that
was-
I was gonna bring it.
It was
too.
kind of like, so I started looking, it was interesting to me to see like some of the exemptions, like even just in that 65 to 74, you see one person was paying 2,100 in 2023 is now gonna pay about 4,000. So it doesn't really make a difference of, I think most people are seeing an increase because of the assessment. So my primary factor is feeling like the elderly that are living in trying to figure out a place that's comfortable enough that maybe that our amounts can be adjusted so that maybe some of those people living on really fixed incomes can probably, those unexpected tax bills that we were talking about last term. But in seeing that Hampton has a higher threshold than we do, I thought, well, maybe that's something we could just adjust. But not at an arbitrary number, which is an idea I had. I'm not going to bring it. No.
I think when you sign.
But I think part of the problem is that we wait so long to make an adjustment that if you just make a small adjustment, it's probably not going to be fair, whatever that is. And I think that's
Right.
something
That makes
we
me
should try to
nervous.
determine is what's the purpose of this? And I don't know what the legislative history is. Maybe that's something we could look at. And I don't know how long the elderly exemption's been in place. Probably
That's a great
a long
question.
time.
Yeah.
Well, you have to look at, one of the big things you have to look at is, what is the average Social Security?
You
Benefit.
ran that number, didn't you?
I do.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's basically, it's like $1,780.
That's not what they have.
And it's like $1,900 almost countrywide.
Yeah.
So when you start looking at that, two people getting medium incomes, they're gonna be under $40,000. They're gonna meet the threshold that we have. So what I'm fearful of is every time you bring that threshold up, you are adding a lot of people to come in and just apply.
I
that-
don't think we need to adjust the income levels, though. I don't think
well,
that's
no, I
the
think the
issue.
income
I
is
think
good.
it's the housing. 'cause I
It's
think-
so too.
it's
Well, I
the
think
amount
that's
of
the
the
disparity
exemption.
think it
is, income has gone up like this, as Janet said.
Yeah.
Social Security income
I'm sorry, I have to put my leg up.
Hold on. Do you want another chair?
No, I'll just put it on the table if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I just showered, so I'm good.
But the assessments have gone up
I'm
like
good, just.
Right.
that.
So to me, when we talk about the exemption amount, it's more valuable than talking about
It is.
income because we're not seeing most people that are going to qualify this program are income qualified based on their Social Security.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's something we need to look at, but I honestly feel, like I said, an example is I know of an 80-year-old woman who didn't have a tax bill in her senior years, which was nice. Her husband passed away. And now with these new exemptions, she has one. So she's trying to figure out, and I'm saying if we increase that slightly, she would still fall into the category and be allowed,
Well, what I'm thinking too is I think one of the drivers to bring this committee together was when did the reassessment town-wide. I mean, if they hadn't reassessed, I mean, we were all way off, so they had to do the reassessments. Everyone's property values went up. And that's how all these folks ended up paying taxes. I definitely feel it has, the biggest thing to look at is the threshold for the value of the home. And maybe we were talking about trying to find, not just make up a number. What was the percentage increase that houses went up? And we somehow factor that in.
And categories were different, yeah.
Yeah, my house went up by 30%, maybe somehow we use that in the equation.
My house went up by 149%.
But
Like, yeah.
Janet, can I put you on a spot for a minute?
Yep.
Okay, I was going over some figures, and I came up with a rough figure that if you were to raise these figures here, 35%, you're not gonna get hurt at all, because I'm looking at the values that were there, the values that we have now, because of the tax rate, and it seems like it could be absorbed with no problem. Is that correct? Or did you?
I would probably agree with that. I have to look at it, but I would probably agree. And I would say the people that got hurt the worst are the mobile homes.
Exactly,
Yeah.
They
yeah.
were assessed at 30,000 and now they're at 200.
That's,
Seems like we all agree that that's where the problem is, and I think that's what we really want to address is problem. You know, if there's not a problem, we don't need to be focused on it, but if there's a problem.
That's why I'm saying, what's the latest legislative history? What's the purpose of this supposed to be?
Yeah.
The purpose of the exemption?
Yes.
Well,
So over the years, two people have gotten petitions together to increase income, assets, exemptions. And at the deliberative session, it got knocked down to $1. That's why our amounts are so odd.
oh, interesting. Okay.
Okay?
I did it twice.
Yeah.
You petitioned or you knocked it down?
Knocked it down.
And so, I mean, I guess no matter what you come up with, it can get changed at the deliberative session, and then it has to be voted in by the town.
Yeah.
So, look at the data, yes, people, you don't know how many hundreds of phone calls I've gotten.
No.
Sure.
So sorry.
I can't imagine.
But just to qualify why that happened, this was probably, 8, 9 years ago? It was brought up at a meeting, maybe even longer than that, where they wanted to bring up the income to like 75,000, which was way out of whack, because someone was really trying to get it for themselves where they were living. So that's why we kicked it back down, because we also looked at the data from Social Security and all that, and it didn't make any sense to bring it up to that point. You know, I agree with everyone here. Values is what has to go up.
But a smaller adjustment to the income, but a larger.
I would definitely agree with all of that, yes. The exemption amounts should go up because the values increase tremendously.
Yeah, you jacked one up.
I think it would be really hard though, Janet, to adjust according to the percentage. I think we would be at a place where people would be like, no.
Yes, I would say that, yes, you can't say it's gonna double because
So
it's not 50%. I don't.
The difference between the
but I would say
categories.
something
Yeah,
should be done.
yeah. So the 65 to 70, the difference between 65 and 74 and 75 to 79 is $31,500 in exemption amount. The difference between the 79 and then the 80 plus is $52,500. So my theory, this arbitrary, I know, but my thought was that if we took the highest amount and actually made it the lowest tier and increased by those same amounts, we really would end up somewhere close to where Hampton is. Well, I don't think and like I said, it's arbitrary, we could dive deeper, but my thought was that if the lowest tier was $236.51, most of the people living in manufactured housing which are probably the lowest of our income folks, would be
Back to
covered.
where they were with.
Or back to where they were, exactly. Pretty much, from what I saw. And the other thing I want to bring up, because I thought about this, because I know, listen, people are going to say, who's paying for more tax money? We could run those numbers, but I think the purpose of this exemption program is to help people age in place, to help people that have lived here, worked here their whole lives. You brought it up once, Ray, about people who have lived here, want to stay here. Exeter is getting more and more expensive. My thought is, why do we give it at 5 years?
We can't.
No, we are at 5 years, right? They have to live here for 5 years to get the exemption?
No, 3.
3 years.
Why is it so low?
It used to be 5, they decreased it to 3. Why?
Is there a balance there?
That's the state.
That's the state.
Is it the state?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I thought it was, I thought there was some flexibility
It's-
there.
And it
that's-
doesn't have, you have to live in the state, not in the town.
Right.
Any town, any place. And that's the problem I have. I have a soft spot for the people who have lived here all their lives. I don't want them to leave.
Yeah, get pushed out.
But we're having all these people move in, and they're looking at all these towns for their exemptions.
Right.
And if they can qualify, there's no way you can tell them you can't.
Yeah.
So we're having people move here specifically so they can pay less of taxes. And
But I
that's
think-
Absolutely.
why
I
I have
think
a
what you
problem.
were just saying, Jeannie, is Portsmouth just a few months ago made a huge adjustment
Oh, that's
in
insane.
their exemption amounts. And I think,
that's,
and I think
yeah.
it's aimed at allowing the people that have lived there for a long time to stay there.
But I'm hearing though, and this is, I mean, it's still right or wrong if it's a state level thing, but I'm like, so an example would be, so we have a home in our community that's for sale, $232,000. So if somebody comes in because they're downsizing and they sell off their home and they buy this one, and now they have maybe a little bit, enough to qualify for the exemption. And they've come from another town and saying, if I live there, I can get the tax exemption once I don't know, like, is that really what this should be driven by, or should it be, I've got people in our community that have lived there for 40 plus years, and they're barely hanging on, trying to stay there and not go into some type of assisted living.
If you can't afford to stay in manufactured housing,
Yeah, it's,
Well, the other
they're
thing
gonna end up
that
somewhere we're paying for anyway.
I was gonna
yeah,
ask
exactly.
about is, there was a select board meeting several months ago, they made a decision not to take properties for non-payment of taxes, and I wondered if there's any information on how that relates to the exemptions. So in other words, are those elderly people that they can't pay their taxes, and the selectmen aren't taking it because of the liability?
Yep, it's because there's I think it was a select board decision, Janet, when they said they weren't going to lien manufactured homes because of the rent liability.
Yes.
Yep.
That's the other liability too.
But is there any insight as to what the composition of that group of homeowners is?
Yeah.
Demographic?
I don't know if it's about the homeowner. I think it's about the fact that you've got the rent of the space. It's not just like taking a house.
Right,
You're taking on a
I understand
real-
why the selectmen did it.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering is, as the values have gone up and the exemption amounts have stayed the same, if it pushed some people into that category that may not have been in that category if the exemption amounts have been changed.
my experience, Mark, and I've lived in my community for 18 years, is most people that fall behind on their taxes are not the ones that pay their bills. That's what I'm gonna tell you. I am not in favor of the select board's decision for a really important reason. Number one, because oftentimes it's a scenario that we would rather have that relationship with the town than have, usually they go hand in hand. You've got somebody not paying their taxes, they're also not
Yeah.
paying their,
They're
not
all-
always,
Yeah,
but I'm
They're all-
just saying,
if you know that they're not gonna take your house if you don't pay your taxes.
they're not gonna pay their taxes.
If you're not an ethical person, you go, well,
Let's just-
why would I pay my taxes?
Let me just give you a reason why the selectmen made that decision. And it was a very logical decision. The majority of the houses that they were getting needed to be torn down.
Oh, yeah.
As soon as they took possession, they were liable for lot rent too. The first year they took a lot of mobile homes.
So
And it cost the town a fortune. And they ended up having not only they had to take them, they had to pay for the houses to be demolished, hauled away, lot rents. And so they found that by taking the mobile home, it costs us a fortune. So that's why the decision wasn't a nilly-willy decision. It really made some sense.
There's more to it than that.
I know there is, but
There is.
still.
I'm just going to tell you this. There was one particular community that literally, if it had been another community, we probably could have worked something out. But literally, they wouldn't have had to pay. In my community, I would have said, fair enough, waive the taxes, we'll take care. I'm just saying, I think there could have been some. I don't necessarily like the idea that we have a really good relationship with the town in my community, and we talk to them about, we know who's delinquent, and we'll try and figure out what's going on. We don't want people to be behind. We want people to be able to, but I mean, it's hard because, again, that's what we're talking about. At the end of the day, when people don't pay taxes, we're all paying for it. It's got to come from somewhere, so.
Yeah.
And the big thing that even if we bring up the way it was before, almost everybody could qualify as far as value-wise for tax-wise. It's just if they were making too much money, that may have been it. But by bringing that up, they again will qualify. So I don't think it's going to be a big problem, quite honestly.
Yeah, and I feel like the people, at least I know my community, that have qualified for the exemption have earned that exemption. You know what I mean? They were tax paying up to the point where they qualified for it, and And I don't know of anybody, I've never seen anybody that basically, actually I had one person at one time should have qualified for the exemption, but by the time they could qualify, they were so delinquent in taxes. And I was like, well, you know, if you had paid your taxes, you could have, but it was like, yeah, I mean, that's the challenge, right? It's like you say, most people that, in my opinion, that have this exemption have earned it. They've been here a while, they've earned it. It's very infrequently that I see people that are coming in basically, and then 3 years later I know that, well, I'm not sure because I'm assuming if their Social Security income because they're retired, most times will qualify them.
Well, I think the big thing I look at is you've got two sectors that everyone can qualify, anyone can apply for it. And with all the information we've been getting, there's a lot of homes that are $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 homes. Mm-hmm. And when you look at if you could have a home that's worth that kind of money,
That's interesting.
and if you could have $190,000 in assets, you know, is there another way that you could actually pay your taxes? You know, why are you relying on the town? So that's the problem I have right there.
I thought about this between last meeting and this meeting, and one of the things I thought about is like, it sounds like a lot of assets, but not really when you own a house. Like, right? Like when you think about let's just say that you retire at 65 and we're all gonna live another 25 years, because that's fine. We're all gonna live at 90. But literally the cost and upkeep of a home over time, like having that amount of assets is kind of important. Like Portsmouth is way higher. I was shocked to see that. They're way out of whack. But at first I thought it was like, oh my God, if they have that kind of money and assets, they should be paying their taxes. But then I realized that could be their 401k savings that they're gonna draw from to do their home repairs and put it, I mean, a roof today is $20,000, right? Like, so you just.
So say they have over 190,000 and it's in 401k. That is considered an asset.
Yep.
But if they draw off of it, all of a sudden that's income. So you're repairing your roof. You have to consider that an asset because you've drawn off your 401k.
Yep.
And as that asset goes down, your income goes up. You still don't qualify unless you spend a lot of it in 1 year. You know, I do this, and it breaks my heart sometimes because these people, they have been saving all their life, and now all their money's going to taxes. I mean, it's terrible, but I have to follow the rules, and I know that. But sometimes it's just so hard.
Jan, what are your thoughts as far as recommendations? I mean, if you were sitting on the committee, I mean, you're the most knowledgeable person in the room.
Well, I've approached before and was completely shot down. So I think something should have been done years ago, but something needs to be done. And I guess if you start with trying to increase the exemption amount, that would be the best place to start. And the assets, it's so hard because people, like I said, people have saved all their life.
Yeah.
And now they're taking this money out to pay their taxes. I feel bad. I mean, I'm in the same position. I'm on my way to retirement, and I won't qualify. Why? Because I have a house.
Yeah.
So once you get
Other than
below
when I
that
live
190, right? But once you get below that 190, you would qualify based on your income. But you're saying that even if you draw it down for something, you have to target that as like drawn income.
Well, if you pull out of
Yeah.
if you pull
Yeah,
money out of a
yeah.
401k, it's income.
Yeah.
So
Even
do
if
you
you use
see,
it for
do you
roof.
see people
What if
that
it's a Roth?
fall off the qualification for a year because of something like that and they come back the next year? That's
I probably
how-
would if I qualified them every year, but I don't.
No, but I'm saying that you actually have examples of that. where-
They should come in and say, and some people do. I took a distribution of 75,000 and now I don't qualify because I needed a roof and
Yeah.
whatever. You know, and you feel bad because you know that that's what they used it for, but
there's
it's
no
still income.
exemptions.
So,
You
yeah.
can't make-
Yeah, no exemptions. Oh, wow, that's crazy.
So as far as going back then, just going through all this literature that we've had in the last month, what is your feeling as far as percentage-wise bringing up valuations?
I was just trying to,
know
I
that
had
you
my
were saying the lowest
calculator.
being
But I was trying to see what the percentage was between that amount. I would say, so if we were going from 236.
So you're talking about a $50,000 increase for each
Well, no, I'm talking about bringing the $236 to the 65 to 74 bracket, which is about
So what's that?
128,000.
That's 80,000, right?
128,000 between the
That's too
two.
much, I think that's a little high.
But I think looking at valuations, I think that it's an average place to start. So yeah, you're talking about, and we're also talking about, that brings us in line closer to where Hampton's at. So I know it sounds high, but that just goes to show where we're significantly off.
I guess I am not an advocate of matching towns.
Yeah.
I am not an advocate at all, because if you want to look at it that way,
I don't want to sit in a meeting and say, well, that's what Hampton does.
Northampton is bringing their rates up this year to like $75,000 for two parties, but they're keeping the valuation at $200,000 for their top tier. So how have they helped anybody? How have they helped anyone that's elderly? They just opened the floodgates for more people to come in, is what they've done, but they haven't served the purpose that they should have done. That 200,000 should have been raised to maybe 250, 275, but it wasn't. So
Yeah.
I think so. Whatever every town does is up to them. I mean, $500,000 for assets for Portsmouth, I think that's insane.
Every town is unique in their makeup.
Yeah,
We have
exactly.
a lot of
So you
mobile
have to-
homes,
you have
so
to-
we
you
need
have to
to
be
look
what you-
at Exeter as
Yeah.
just
The
Exeter.
only comparison I was trying to draw was that for me, some of the value has to be about the fact that we've housed a lot of workers in this town for years. Like, I'm just thinking like the types of towns where people come to live and work here. Just like, and I feel like, and I say that because I actually raised my
That
son
used to be
in
the whole
Hampton.
seacoast, but it's not.
It isn't
Yeah.
anymore. I mean, like,
I wouldn't use that as,
I'm just, that was my logic.
because that things
Whether-
can change.
yeah.
You gotta kind of really look, I think it's really looking at the type of housing that we have.
Yeah. Oh, that too. But
I mean, because it, and I think what really like knocks us out of whack, and it always has, is the fact that we have so much manufactured housing. And so that, that's what we really, I mean, I think and I think the fix will really, that we're talking about is only gonna affect manufactured housing. It's not gonna affect any house in my neighborhood. Or just about any neighborhood, because good luck.
There's
Where are you gonna
very
find-
few homes on here that are more than.
where can you find a home in Exeter that's under $250,000?
You can't.
That's not, so there you go. So this, the solution is just gonna be targeted towards those homes, and if that's where our elderly, folks are living that have income limitations, then that's where the solution needs to be driven towards. And not whether they live and work here or anything like that, it's where are the needy elderly living, and what is that threshold that's gonna help them get back to where they were?
Yeah, and those are the folks that face the highest reassessment, right? So the manufactured homes were 149%. We clearly can't go that route.
Yeah. But I didn't mean for
No,
them
no, I know, yeah.
specifically. I thought in general,
Yeah.
like, what was the
So
overall town?
what if we
Increase that
started
could be
looking
useful.
at like a 20% increase across the board to each one of these?
I think you could go higher to 30
Well, let's see, I guess,
across the board. but-
So 20%
Well, I
of the
mean, the
bottom,
average-
that would bring us to 180.
The average increase in the assessment was around 60%.
Right, so you have to
so a
look.
third.
And that was this time. And there's been, what, at least 3 revaluations since this was last adjusted? It's every 5 years. This was last adjusted in 2008.
So we did it in 14, that was early.
Okay,
Should have been, well, I mean, we did it in 19, that was early, it should have been 20. So we've done, yeah, you're right, probably 3.
So interestingly,
But the difference
Values
is,
didn't go up that much as they did this time.
time, yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
You'd have to go back and look at the equalization for
That was
each
one of the
year.
things that I was gonna do, but I haven't had a chance to do it.
So interesting enough that if we take 60% and increase it, it brings our bottom tier to 243,601, which I said 236. It's really close to what I was saying. Like that.
But it gives a little bit more basis.
A little more basis, like, yeah.
what at 30%, what does that bring?
Get rid of that dollar, would you?
That's about 100.
Yeah.
I know, I don't know why.
Yeah, that was something Russ had already mentioned. Round numbers, right?
I agree.
Yeah, like I said, the only reason that those odd numbers are there is because the deliberative sessions twice, they just knocked it down to $1, so.
Well, because you have to leave a monetary figure, and that's the problem. You couldn't keep it the same, because that's the problem with deliberative. If there's a monetary figure that they want to go up, you can reduce it, but you can't reduce it 100%. So,
Right, you have to leave at least $1.
Right.
so what I was looking at, I'm not looking at total tax exemption from everybody.
No.
What I'm looking at is, that's why I'm looking at 30%, that'd be about a $30,000 increase on the 150.
So about 200,000, yeah.
So you're still below, but you're close enough that it's much more tolerable.
Yeah.
And I think,
But I think we have plenty of time to consider what this is, because the process would be, we'd make a recommendation to the select board.
Yeah.
Select board, if they accept that recommendation, then they would take it to the voters, but that's not gonna be for a year.
Yeah, so we have to, this is good to kind of get us thinking of how to look at the
How to
numbers.
approach it, how to talk about it, yeah.
So, do
You
you,
could
so
also
what you
do a
say-
citizen's petition.
well, yeah,
Mid-cycle?
No,
No.
no, that would still be,
I think if the select board though, I think they would be
I think that they are,
ready for
I think they
something.
formed this committee partly to address this particular one. And I think that they would be open to putting a warrant article in if we make a recommendation, but.
I have a question. Is anybody like the average, so of all the manufactured housing, what's like the average value, highest, lowest, kind of, is it mostly in the middle? Is it mostly at the higher end?
I would say, let's call it 150, right? Janet, would you agree, like 150 is kind of the average assessment right now for manufactured housing?
I would probably say yes.
Yeah, pretty close.
Yeah, there's no more
I think that's-
20,000s
yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
I mean,
There's
those
no
numbers-
what?
More 20,000.
Yeah, no
No
more
more
20,000.
20,000s.
Okay.
So,
I mean,
yeah.
a lot of them were 20, 30,000. A lot of them. And they're not anymore. They're 75 to 100, the ones that were that value.
Even though, like I'm seeing one here was 28,400, who is now 96,500.
Yeah,
Like-
see?
But if we wanted, so if I want it in my
Those
head,
numbers are on the MS1, so we can,
Well, yeah, and she ran us a report of all of them. These are all the exemption, like she broke this down.
I'm just saying,
yeah.
not just the exemptions, but total, because it does break out manufactured housing as a separate line on the MS1.
I don't think it does
Yes.
it? Oh, it does, okay.
Yes, it is.
And I think it's a value, and I think it's the total number of units, so I mean, we can just easily crunch
I don't
those.
know if the total units are on the MS1.
Okay, I thought it was, but.
They could be.
That's somewhere in my file here.
5 years, you'd
I
think I'd
can't
know.
find the original pile. They tore my office up, all that paper, and I'm like, I don't have it.
Yeah, I
But-
mean,
Right, it's somewhere.
I see a couple in here that I could tell are manufactured and they'd be slightly over that, but I mean, that's a pretty, like I said, there's a couple here that were like, actually, that's gotta be a newer home, because it was 225 and then it went to that's 230. That's gonna be probably one that just got put in. There's the brand new ones that people are buying because a lot of people are pulling out the older ones to put new ones are gonna value higher. But I think most people that live
There's a
here.
line item for the number of structures, but it's not filled in.
It's definitely, yeah.
So if we're talking about the people that we're concerned about, could we say that if we wanted to like visualize what their home is worth, it's gonna be about 150. So that's gotta be the number, I think, that we're gonna be looking at, making sure we hit,
So
that we don't go below 150.
We're already
But we're already
hitting that.
there.
Or, I mean-
We're already there.
Yeah.
We're on there
But
on
there's a
every one of them.
significant amount of people, like, think of it, if that's the average, you've got 50% that are now above that, right? So I
Well,
think.
no, that's what I'm asking. The target audience, are they all at 150? Are they at?
I mean, so you asked for an average, so I'm saying like somewhere in the middle, I think most people are making this, but I think we're probably looking, I'm gonna assume, Janet, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're seeing probably in the younger bracket, that 65 to 74, my guess would be we're seeing about 22 to 24% of homes that are now beyond, like seeing some type of tax bill, maybe somewhere between there. Is that about right, Janet?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I think so, just for my crazy brain looking at these numbers. So, I mean, nothing tangible there, but I still think there's quite a few people that have fallen outside of that class.
But I think that if we go too high, we're actually going above.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't want to go.
Average, I wouldn't want to do that either.
Yeah, I don't want to go again back out of whack in the other direction.
Yeah.
You know,
Because I think
It's like,
what's going to happen.
what is the need? What's that number do we need to hit? Was it 150? That's why I was trying to bring that up. What's that number?
Yeah, but because we're already at 156, is that the lowest?
Yeah.
152.
So let's take
251.
Yeah, 152, so that's.
So
really,
let's take manufactured out of the equation and think about the ones that are on here that are, I would say, like, I've seen quite a few people that tax bills are going from 2,000 to 4,000. So I think there is some value when you talk about the assessment increases. Like, I think about the amount of I still want to go back to the percentage of the increase, because I still think those people, if they're qualifying, are still on some type of fixed income.
Yes and no.
Well, pretty much.
That's a question that doesn't have an answer.
I know.
Because you said that if they went up to 200,000, well, what if the value was only 75,000? Then a big increase is, it's not as if it's going to be well over $300,000. It's different. It's different on manufactured home because they were valued so low.
Right, but so here's a home right here that they were assessed in 2023 at $233,800, and then you go over to the 2024 and they went up to $381,800. So that's probably not a manufactured home.
Right.
Go over to the taxes that they paid in 2023 were taxes paid. Amount tax. Sorry, was $2,177 in 2023. So they paid their fair share after the exemption, but now their taxes paid is going to be $4,083. So they're still seeing this significant amount of a tax burden increase.
Yeah.
So I don't want to discount
getting
that.
hurt.
Yeah, I don't want to discount us saying, like, let's just look at this. I still think it's the increase across the board, and I'm hearing, I don't really know the final number, but I think it is 60%. They said an average of 60%. I think that's where we
That was
need
the
to
townwide
think
average,
about.
around 60. I forget the exact number.
And I don't think, even if you went 60%, it's going to help even some people in manufactured housing because of the 140, the gap, right?
Right.
So, but I don't think we can base it all around the average manufactured housing assessment. I don't. I think we've got to think of the full picture here.
Well, I'm a firm believer that the numbers that you input as far as the valuation won't hurt any town as long as you don't significantly raise the income levels. That's where the crutch is right there. Because you start raising the income levels really high, that's when you have the problems.
Janet, do you think we need to raise the income levels here?
I think
If so, a small amount.
Yeah.
I think it'd be very small.
Only because Social Security does go up every year,
Yep.
and so people fall off
Maybe.
for
Yeah.
$1,000,
But it goes up
And I think another thing too,
CPI, so.
from that sheet you gave us last week, it kind of, some of the things I've been thinking about, I think that the single versus two people, I think the single has to be brought up. Because you see, that's when you have the biggest problem, is when you have two people, they get the income
Well,
level.
the example that Jeannie has given us several times there, the
It's
woman who became a widow and
Yep, and then,
Went from no taxes to.
yeah, you get the survivor's benefit, but it definitely
You don't-
does
you don't
not.
get that
it's-
much,
yeah, it's
yeah.
not much.
So
Doesn't
I
it make
think-
us all wanna, no, let's all just hope for the best here, that's what I have. No, I mean, I think we're on the right track, I feel like, I think we can all, I just wanna see where we're aligned. I think we agree that the exemption value needs to be increased to,
Oh, yeah.
and probably to, you say we have to do some type of dollar, like, it has to be probably, it'd be best to look at a percentage. I think a percentage
Well, you can
versus
set it, you can set it at
All
a
right,
dollar.
I have to go. I have
Okay.
things happening, so I gotta go.
Fine, thank you.
Thank you for all the
Next
information.
month.
All
Send
right,
me an email if you need anything, okay?
can you make the weather warmer? Oh, that's probably not you.
Yeah, I wish.
Thanks, Janet. Bye-bye. So yeah, I mean,
We can come up with a recommendation using a percentage, but ultimately it has to be a dollar amount.
Well, we can work it on a percentage, but figure it out,
Yeah.
like it's a dollar, because
Yeah.
that's, I mean, the only way, it's a little screwy right now because of the last two meetings where we had to keep something there. But now I think it's time to really set it at
but
a
it might be good to start with a percentage and bring it back next month and maybe dig in a little bit to like, what's the dollar impact? Like, what does that look like for us overall? Like,
I was also gonna look at, based on that information we just got yesterday, there's a long history there of the tax rate and the amount of the exemption. And I was gonna dig into that a little bit more, I just didn't have time.
does anybody know when the last time was that we increased the income limits?
The last time
When we did it for,
was 2008.
Okay, so that all of this was set in 2008. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
but, our values were actually quite high back even then. And that's the thing you have to look at. And you have to look at, this has been not normal, how in the course of 2 years, we have gone crazy in prices. This is just not normal times. This should never happen. So this is why the reflection on this, the actual taxes went up so much, because that's what's going on, but
I think it
that's
happened in the
not
late
normal.
90s.
Jerry, I want to talk to you again about, let's talk about 2008 for a minute. I don't think values are where you think they were. I'm gonna say we bought our house in 2007 and then the market crashed. And I remember getting an
Right.
appraisal in
Right.
2009 for a refinance and it went the other way.
Exactly.
Like, so I don't know. I mean, my assumption was in 2008. I mean, maybe they were at the height and we just hadn't seen that crash yet, but
Yeah, we were at the height and it crashed. Well, 2008 is when I lost a lot of money on one of the houses. But it took 12 years
yeah.
before the values came back up. So you have to look at, it was a very slow period. So the value that we had in the town for an exemption at that time was actually one of the highest in this whole area. So Exeter was doing extremely well.
Yeah. And I want to share with you my theory on the explanation of why manufactured housing is so high is because, again, I talked about investors earlier, but a lot of those older homes now, investors have found the sweet spot where they're buying them to pull them out, or they're finding them that they're abandoned, like the town was talking about, and what they're doing is they're marketing them for profit. And so that's happening all across this town. It's not a bad thing. A nicer home is a good quality thing.
They're pulling them out and putting
They're
a
pulling
new
in, they're putting in a brand new home.
Yeah.
So they're going to sell for more money because it's still the affordable housing choice here, but it's
Yeah.
unbalanced for the people that are still living in some of those homes that,
Right.
again, it's not a bad thing because, again, living in a 1970s manufactured home is not the most financially viable thing for anybody. But at the end of the day, I'm like, the market's got to sell what people are willing to pay, and this market is just insane. So it's like you just say,
It won't last forever.
yeah,
Yeah, it'll adjust again. But I guess the problem, like I'm just bringing back the problem I really have is wanting to take care of the people that live in this town. And unfortunately, I've
I
talked
live
to
here.
a couple people.
Help me out. My taxes, I'm scared.
Yeah, but I've talked to two people at the manufacturer down in, off of Sherwood Forest, two different people. Both of them moved from California because the prices are so good here that they sold, came here, bought cash,
Yeah.
and that's the problem we're having. So You know, we can't say, well, we
Well,
want to
compared to
help you, but we
California,
can't help
that's
you.
different.
You know?
Yeah.
You
Neighbors
know?
across the street moved from
Yeah,
California.
Well, it's happening right in this town. People are selling at enormous prices and buying something for less money to retirement, and that's the way it's supposed to be. But it's putting too much cash to buy product, and you're eliminating people because there's so much cash offers.
It's infrequent. I mean, the norm is, I mean, we could do a demographic survey all day long, but like the norm is that most people that live in my community have been there a long time. They're like, they're either young families working retail jobs, just trying to make it meet. And so my husband and I moved in there because his parents lived there, and at the time, we were probably considered lower income at the time. And granted, my husband works for SIG, and I work for a nonprofit, so it's like, and we stay there because his mom's, I love it. But it's like at the end of the day, I get to watch my neighbors, and I love that. We have how many 80-year-olds we have living there? It's amazing. And it's like they know that they can comfortably live there. It's first floor living. They can rely on their neighbors around them to watch out for them. It's a really good place for them to be.
Which neighborhood are you in?
I'm in Exeter Hampton Cooperative, which is up on the Hampton line. Yeah.
But I think you living in that area, and talking to some of the people too, there's that realization there's so many people that have no clue about this. And I don't know why, because I know a lot of people that down in the Sherwood Forest, that area, you know, it's tough, but they have never applied. And it's like, why? You know, if it's there for you, why wouldn't you do it?
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's a lot of assumptions out there that people have access to what they need, and
No, and they don't.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
we have a really good, like I said, we're 50 homes and we're pretty close, so we make sure we get a lot of information out. But I would guarantee you that there's people in here that have no idea. Like even we talked about it at one of the first meetings about the property tax relief program. They can also, working people can apply for relief after they pay through the state. But the form is so unbelievable. Like I was looking at it, I work with this stuff. I'm like, I couldn't even figure it out.
Yeah.
But it's like I don't even know many people that apply for it. But it's like you said.
Well, I
like,
think that Janet had said she's never seen one.
Yeah. I mean, my son lives 2 hours away from here because he couldn't afford to live here.
but that's what kind of shocked me going through those figures you said that you sent out. I'm looking at a number since like 20, when it first started. I'm looking at how many exemptions on the elderly were every year. And it's like ramping up and then start coming down. And the last few years it's actually lower than it has been. And so what did that tell you? Taxes are going up, but figures are coming down? Why is that? You would think if anything it'd be progressively going up.
Maybe what Janet's talking about is some people that are just over the income thresholds barely because they're, I don't know.
I don't know. I think there's a lot of people that would be able to apply and get it. But but you look at Portsmouth, like Exeter has more people on our elderly exemption than Portsmouth has. That was another interesting thing that when you said.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you look at all these figures, you say, wow, that's why is that? You know?
Because I think in Portsmouth, some of those people have already been driven out.
Well, maybe it's because you can't have an affordable house in Portsmouth.
I was gonna say, what is affordable in Portsmouth though? That's what I want to know. Like, I mean, I know they do have a couple of manufactured, so there's a manufactured housing community right on Route 1, and you go in there, those homes sell at over $300,000. You go, yeah. But there is like this Oriental Gardens over there, but there's not a lot of them. And I mean, that's the thing about Portsmouth is they have a lot of public housing. They have their own housing authority. They have a lot of places for people to go. I mean, what do we have? We have a meeting place. Yeah.
Oh no. We have got a ton of. We've got it on Linden Street. We've got it on Portsmouth Ave. We have various houses all over town that are rented out as low income. So the meeting place is only one place.
So you're talking about Section 8, right?
Yeah.
Subsidized. I would
Subsidized.
yeah.
Right.
But we do have a lot here. I mean, when you start looking at what Exeter offers, we offer a lot of things to a lot of different people, a lot more than people realize.
Yeah. Well, I think that's really good, but
I think so too.
Again, that's the thing, the difference between that and manufactured housing is I think a lot of those subsidized housing places already get tax exempt. You know, they get tax credits just for being the class of housing that they are. So in retrospect, we own the property where I live, the residents do, we pay land taxes just like everybody else. So we not only pay taxes on our homes, but we also contribute to the land taxes through our park rent.
Is your park considered commercial?
All parks are,
Okay.
yeah.
I knew.
Which is, yeah,
Oh, no,
it's because it's all, it's still not RSA's, right? So,
Yeah.
I did have luck this year talking with the tax, I did appeal because I said that. I said, I don't know what income valuation you're drawing because we're not for profit. Like we operate on a basis, and we resubmitted the form and got a slight adjustment, but you have to look out for those things, you know, because if we were a private park, each one of those lots would be an income producing business because there's a profit associated, but that's not how a co-op works, you know. But
And I noticed that if you look at the list of the 10 largest property tax payers,
Exeter River is one of them, yeah.
yes, I think it's 10, but it's on the list.
So you think about that the whole lot of these people are all contributing to be one of the highest taxpayers. And some, like every one of them, portion of their lot rent goes to pay that land tax bill.
Right. Well, it has to, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, so I mean, I would say that I don't think anybody's, like I said, most people pay taxes.
An owner of a park, if it's a private, not a resident owned, what are their expenses? It's debt service, property tax, and then maintenance of the park.
Yeah.
And probably in that order.
Yeah, exactly, in that order. Yeah. Yeah, like I was just saying before I came in, that I just found out that one of the private communities here that we used to compare ourselves to rent-wise, they were at $445 and now they've gone up to $550. And my assumption is it's because of the tax increases. But I mean, so you're not, also again, we've got another set of, so they're facing rent increases because of the land tax increases on top of the excess taxes. It's just,
It didn't go up that much in land.
yes, it did.
No, it didn't. I've looked at so many parcels of land, and I took the old rate, I looked at what the land was, and did it what it was at the old rate, the old value, the new one at the new value.
Yeah, my land tax assessment, and it doubled.
It's, well, the value will, but how much money are you putting out doesn't.
Yep. Yeah. We had to increase, our tax bill went up $10,000 a year. It's $10,000 divided by everybody, it's still an increase.
Yeah. But I think what Jerry's saying, maybe not that, because
Yeah,
you're
not
being
that,
passed
yeah.
on.
But
Yeah.
I'm just
It's
making,
not to the degree that you need $100 from everybody.
no,
Right.
no.
No,
Right.
we've got.
Oh, I get
Maybe you need
yeah.
60, but you asked for 100.
Exactly.
Yeah. We planned for $20. We're pretty proactive about it, and I think it was more, we came up better than we thought we were gonna be, which is good. But yeah, I agree with you. That's the whole value of resident ownership. There it is, like,
Because you gotta look at people that are there to make money, because I know on all the rentals I have, once I would enter into a rent agreement, I never changed it. I never went up. And I don't care how long they were there, I've had people for 16 years.
Jesus, I put a rent premium.
I was gonna say, do you have anything for rent right
I
now?
know, really.
No, I mean, because that's the
I'd be a
way,
great tenant.
no, but that's the way it should actually be. When you really look at the reality, town taxes do go up, they don't go up enough that's gonna vary your profit, you know? And then, but in the
crazy.
case, this is really, something that happened in all these towns, this is a fluke. The values have gone up so high that to realize the actual value, they had to show it. But when you look at the difference between 26.78, now it's 17.79, that's a huge difference.
Yeah.
So you take everything into consideration, and then you, on top of that, you put last year's spending, we spent a lot of money in the
Right.
town, you put it all together, and it really, for a lot of people, it didn't go up crazy money.
I think a lot of things are going up across the board though too.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not defending any for-profit developer or whatever, landowner, but I'm just saying, like, I think a lot of things have gone up. And I think that's just it. If my cost of living goes up and that's my bread and butter, I gotta look at what I gotta do to make my ends meet. So, yeah, so it sounds like for next meeting, what do we wanna focus on? Do we wanna,
I would think come in with some solid ideas on values on, percentage-wise and monetary-wise. Do we think
Would also be good
asset-wise?
to get some input from the folks who aren't here tonight too, so
Yeah.
select board and. town
If they don't
manager.
come, they don't get input. I'm just kidding.
Well, I don't think they're gonna have, I don't know if they're gonna have the input that we were looking for to make these recommendations. In regards to like, I think to keep moving forward, we need to know more about the strand of people that are affected.
Yep.
How much is there, what's the valuations on the majority of those homes that are?
Yeah, and we have all the numbers. I think it's just I think we got to average. It doesn't average out. I don't think it did anyhow. I think I was really grateful
Is that
for
what was
this.
sent to us?
No,
the other
this
day?
was somebody had asked for this and Janet sent it out, but then it was the packet. I had the packet
That's
had
35 pages.
Well, that wasn't the whole package. We got this earlier because somebody asked Janet for it last month, but this compares 2023 to 2024, and then it breaks it down by classes. So these are the 65 to 74, then there's the 75 to 79s, and then the 80 plus. So, I mean, I think that's what, I mean, and it has the valuation between the 2 years, the difference in tax rates, which I thought this was super helpful. Like,
I think it was all helpful.
I do think this is what's on my mind. The hardest part for me is going, oh my God, we have to wait till next year. Because people are hurting, I don't know, like I know that there's nothing we can do, but.
Yeah, it stinks, but I mean.
Actually, I think this is wonderful that we're having to wait till next year. And there's a reason for that. I'm watching a lot of towns make a lot of mistakes right now.
Okay.
And
I know there
we
was also
fortunately are
concern
not one of
that
them.
before our committee got going, that somebody might submit a petition article, and that didn't happen, so that's a good thing, because it gives us that time to work through this.
What would a petition article have changed? Just like it would have brought it in sooner than even we had the chance to make the recommendation.
Yeah.
Or they could have thrown out numbers that were going, where the hell did that come from? And then
Yeah.
people just voted yay or nay, and it's kind of made
Yeah.
Without this sort of
betting.
deliberation and digging into the details.
Yeah.
Well, it's like what Julie would brought up last meeting about that crazy one in Concord right now. If that gets passed, every town will adopt that, because
What is
you
that?
need 25 people for citizens petition. And I tell you, right now in town, there are 25 people who would love to pay no taxes.
Where is
Where's
that
this
at,
for?
that bill?
This is a new bill that's going through. If you're 78,
I think
you
prior
pay
to our,
taxes.
No, I don't.
There are no limitations as
We're
far
supposed
as
to-
income.
We're
There's
gonna
no
have a hearing, I think.
value. It's absolutely
It's still
crazy.
going to, it's
we're
still.
gonna have a hearing right after our
Yeah.
last meeting, so I don't know what happened.
So basically, but it would be, the town could choose to adopt that over the plan that they have. So it wouldn't do away with these exemptions, those would stay on the book. This would, Julie explained that this would be a whole new option. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, and I could see that, right? People go, oh my gosh, I'm 78, but like no requirement. Doesn't matter your income, wouldn't matter anything. And I was like, wow.
And they said, well, if the town adopts it, well, the town will adopt it. All you do is you put in a set of 25 signatures, citizens
But is it
petitions.
adopted or it gets on
Well, once it's voted on, it's adopted. That's it.
well, yeah, but I'm saying you can get a petition up, it doesn't mean the whole town's gonna vote for it.
How many people would not vote for free taxes?
Everyone who's under the age of 70.
Everyone who.
Everyone that's 78 will be wanting that.
Think of the dynamic of people who vote.
And I mean, it's crazy. I vote for, why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I want free taxes? If they're gonna give it to me, why didn't they say no?
I'm just saying, anybody who's like in their
No, it's
50s
crazy.
that paying taxes would go no.
It's just it's a crazy law. I don't even understand why they would come up with something
Yeah,
like
and
that.
as much as I'm for helping people, I'm like, wait a
That's a
minute,
little
like
bit
something's
wild.
really wrong
Yeah,
with that.
there's helping and there's.
Yeah, and it's,
Over.
I think you, like something you said early on, Jerry's really just stuck with me about like just watching people trying to stay here, that love this town and want to be here. That's where and so if we firm up this, then we would probably move on to
I
the
think
other exemptions as well. at
the
some
veterans, I
point.
think, should be our
Veterans.
next priority.
Okay.
I think the one that we don't have, that most surrounding towns have, is the all veterans one.
Yeah.
So maybe we can all look at that.
Yeah, it's a little confusing to me, but we can talk about that
Yeah.
at a meeting. I don't want to dig into it at 8 o'clock, but.
Yeah, I'm not
But
prepared to talk about it anyway.
but there was another bill too that Julie talked about. There was something on the docket about veterans exemptions as well. I don't remember what it was. There were two different bills, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. And then there's,
The veterans ones are pretty confusing because it's a whole bunch of different classifications.
Yeah,
So I think if we
Yeah.
can all study those before our next meeting, maybe we can have a,
yeah, we have to get the paperwork.
yeah, I would say like, I do know of a couple of veterans too, and it's interesting that most have, I found that they don't qualify because of their pensions, you know what I mean? So if they have a military pension, like their income, like you do have to be income qualified, I guess.
the all veterans one does
I
not
think-
have an.
I think
income
that's
qualifier.
why we.
And I know one of the
Yeah.
concerns that I think staff have is that, well, what would the impact of that be? Because they have to build that into the budget, whatever,
Yeah.
you know, if we were to propose a new exemption. But I think we might be able to sort of get back into that by looking at the census data or
Yeah.
something, I don't know.
It's really interesting to balance that all out. I mean, the elderly one's easy because you think about it could have a bigger tax impact without adjusting it. I'm just saying that if people stop paying their taxes.
Yeah,
The veterans, and that's a little different because when you're offering something new, I think there's a whole
Right.
Yeah.
But it's like a $500 credit
versus
versus
an
an
exemption.
exemption. So it's not, it's a different animal.
yeah.
And they could get both, right? Like they could get an exemption. I don't know. Like,
Yes, I believe so.
That's where it
It's
gets
just
weird.
like they could apply for both elderly exemptions, Janet was saying last time, which is pretty bizarre too. If this new one came in, they could go for both. It's like, it's,
We're paying people to be.
well, why would it matter if they got the one with no taxes to pay for the? I don't know. It's kind of crazy. I haven't looked in a while. Something I got an email on today about a hearing tomorrow, but I don't think it's nothing to do with taxes.
well, I think the big thing I always look at is, what does it cost? What does it cost, to live? And that to me is an important thing. And I know that when I did my own evaluation, I put in some things that people would say, why would you put that in? That's well, because it might happen.
For life, yeah.
I mean, I've got cable, I've got TV, I to lease a car, insurance on everything, and still I'm still coming up with like $40,000. That's paying $12,000 a year in taxes. So when you're not paying the taxes, I'm looking. I could really realistically live on, like, if I had a tax break, like $30,000 a year. So when you're looking at, well, even if I was getting the minimum amount of money from Social Security, that's still $40,000. So I could actually, have, not a lot of disposable income, but that's without even using assets. So, I think you really got to, when you're doing this stuff, you have to look at it from every angle and not just take a figure and say, okay, we're gonna bring up this figure because we just think the cost of living. And I said, but it doesn't affect these people who aren't making that money. You have to look at how much money are they really bringing in.
Yeah, and then I think about like Janet's story tonight, like what she was talking about, these people that have worked their whole lives to save a little bit of money. It's like, and you wonder, like, I don't know I haven't really explored the income, but like you wonder if there's opportunity to, like, if they have income, can they have exemptions to that income? You know what I mean? Like, it's too bad that there are people that, like she said, if she draws from her 401k to fix her roof, it disqualifies somebody because then it puts it in as income.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I was helping my daughter with her taxes, so it had me thinking about taxes. Like, okay, and she's LLC, she does a little part-time aesthetic stuff. So she has how much she made, but she got to have deductions. So it's like if you say, oh, this is my income, but I can deduct $15,000 because that
Business expenses, yeah.
Well, yeah, or I had to take $15,000 out of my 401k, but that was for a roof. It wasn't just
not to supplement my living
supplemental,
expenses.
so I could go to Europe.
That's what I'm saying. I wonder. I don't know
if they could do something like that,
if there's
you go, okay, it's okay to take out money to get a new roof so your house doesn't collapse because it's not going to affect. You're not going to affect your income.
And then you have to ask the question that I know Dan had on his mind, which is, how do you verify that? How do you verify when
I
people
know.
say, like, hey, there's
Well, I
income,
thought
but it
that's one of
says.
the other things we should
Yeah.
discuss at some point.
Yeah, that's really
Well,
important.
verification is,
Verification. I think that's gonna be a big.
I know Janet does a pretty good
Difference.
job. We did talk about that one meeting. I know she feels like, but I could tell in
I
my
don't think it was a
interview.
question about her job, her office. It's more, I think there's a feeling that there's people that are
Not reporting.
getting away with things.
Yeah,
that was the other thing I was gonna ask Janet, and I forgot, so if anyone could maybe remember, because as I get older, I forget really quick.
We're all in trouble then.
yeah.
If you have a trust, if you have everything in the trust,
Is
now
it
technically you don't own anything.
only if it's irrevocable?
So how does that
I don't
affect?
know. That's a great question.
I don't
So,
think that's, I think
because
we
how
can
many
move our pay
people?
grade.
Because your house isn't included. If you have no assets, and you're getting a minimal money, because I've had problems with people I've met in Exeter, and that's, I've been looking at this elderly exemption for many, many years. And a lot of it is because of abuse, and Dan has said it right. There are people, and I would say that probably 90% of them don't. But those who do, they do it for, this one woman, she was really.
You told us about that last
She was really
time.
taking the town to court, the course on that. And that's just not the way, it just bothers me. And that's why, the other thing I said, and I actually have gotten good responses, to change it on a state level, where the exemption now is more like a current use tax, where when you pass away, when both people are gone, if you have an estate, the town can recoup the money out of the estate without any interest. We're not trying to make an interest.
Right.
Or if someone in the family wanted to buy it, you work out an arrangement so they could actually pay you back. But that would open up every town in New Hampshire to give a good veterans credit. And you could give them as much as you want, because
But isn't that essentially what that exemption is?
No, because they don't have to pay it back. No one, it never gets
No,
paid back.
the other exemption.
Oh, yeah, that would be, if you took out that, you would have to pay it back, right?
Yeah.
That's not an exemption, that's the, it's a
Deferral, that's a
deferral.
deferral.
Deferral, I was thinking the same
Right, and
thing.
why would you go for a deferral?
But deferral is interest, it's
It's
interest, yeah.
5% interest on the deferral. But why would you do that if you can get it for free?
Yeah.
And I think this program should be scrapped. We should bring it in on the state level and change it so that everyone, basically, you could open up the field to more money for all kinds of people, because now the town has a way to get it back. I presented
At
it.
some point though, right, but like, how do you plan for, like, let's just say that everybody decided to opt into that, and and you're saying that there's an estate, so let's say, like, we don't know, that could be 20 years down the road
It
for
could be.
qualifying.
It could be.
Yeah.
But then again, you have to look at, the problem is 20 years from now, you're not going to get
Seemed like it would
anything
be a
now.
nightmare to administer.
To even administer it, yeah, I can't.
I thought it would be
Yeah.
too, but everyone I've talked to, matter of fact, Russ thought it was a wonderful idea. I've presented to 3 different boards, they all would love it. I'd like to go to different towns, present it, see what they feel. I've only had 1 people in the course of 10 years that didn't like it. 1 person. And they said, that's because you.
I don't think it's a bad idea,
No,
just
I
wonder
think
too
things like
about
that need
that.
to be
But I do
explored.
think it's, in general, it's a point that we could certainly come up with recommendations and pass them to Julie Gilman to take to Concord.
Yeah.
You know, But it
It's
has to
kinda
be
nice
done on
have
the
Julie
state
around
level.
too. I like that.
So,
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like, it's really unfortunate that there's nothing that we can do at all to talk about, like, some of these tax impact on working families that don't qualify for any exemptions. That's a state level thing, but well.
well, because that's the problem I'm looking at right now. I'm looking at people, okay, you're looking at the elderly who have we'll say you got the full amount of, let's say you got $150,000 in assets. You've got a house that's worth $400,000. You're getting the minimum for you and your spouse, Social Security, you get $40,000 a year, and you're gonna get free taxes. Now, you look at a young person has to go out and pay rent, or let's look at a person that could never buy a house has to pay rent. We focus on one group of people, but there's a bigger portion that we're eliminating because they have no help. There's no one there to help them for anything. You know, the young person that can't buy a house. So I'm trying to be cognizant as far as who am I going to give.
We can talk all that.
I don't want to just leave it on one level.
Yeah.
I don't want to give so much to one that you're forgetting the others.
Why couldn't we have a state level program that created an incentive for even somebody who owned an apartment building, if they kept it a moderate rent level, giving them some credit for providing an affordable housing versus saying like, they're all driving the market rate, but they're driving people out of the ability to live here.
See, I'd be a 79E that would go to that. I would be
Way more
so in
than
favor of that.
this $1 million cut,
You
right?
know?
Yeah.
Because that's a huge problem, and everyone talks about that. Everybody,
Yeah.
every town, affordable housing. That's a big buzzword.
It's your workers.
No
It's
one
everybody
does
in this
anything.
town.
Yeah.
No one does a thing about it.
Like even our somebody was saying recently about the contracts for our public workers, our fire, police and stuff. They don't make great money either. I mean, they're not able to afford. Like if they have to come from far away because they can't afford to live here. Like I would love to see us incentivize programs that keep housing affordable. It's like, yeah, you're great, develop it.
At the deliberative session, there was a long list of people that were allowed to speak that don't live in town,
Oh, really?
employees.
Oh, good.
Oh, okay.
Good. Yeah, I mean, that's it matters to them, right? Like, I think it does.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that people, like I said, this is an interesting, it's a great town, isn't it? It's the whole dynamic is so
And that's why
interesting.
I've been here all my life. I don't want to leave it
Yeah.
because I do love the town. But I'm looking at, how can you help a lot of people? I'm looking. I don't want to just focus just on the elderly and say, okay, that's it. And they need the help, but you start looking at everybody else. Like you said, your daughter, does she live in town or?
Her buddy just got a little apartment. It's very, very small.
And how much was it?
They $1,600.
Oh, not bad.
But nothing's included. It's very small.
Yeah, but
It's old.
That's crazy money.
Yeah, she's broke and I'm helping her.
Yeah.
I pay for her groceries and stuff. She pays her rent. That's our deal and some other stuff, but
And they've got
Yeah, she
rentals.
couldn't-
They have 2 bedrooms downtown now for $2,800. I'm like, how is it?
yeah, she couldn't even
What is that
afford
kind of-
this if she didn't have like me helping out with
Yeah,
groceries.
and
stuff.
that's a big problem.
Yeah.
And that problem is being overlooked.
Down
right.
the hall to the
Okay,
right.
I'll be right
Yeah,
back.
I gotta stand up. My legs are really starting to hurt.
Well, anyways, we have any more to talk about here that we?
Yeah. Well, I think, we just gotta chip away at one thing at a time. And again, there's so many other areas that need help, but
But I don't think, to your point of the people who aren't elderly, I'm not sure that there's any exemptions or credits that apply.
No,
no,
there
there
isn't.
isn't.
And so when you think about that, and you start saying, okay, we're going to raise an income level for the elderly to $75,000, and you've got young people that not even making that, and they're trying to get an apartment. And you can say, okay, we got something that's
It's
wrong
basically
here.
the working poor,
Yeah,
right?
so it's,
We have the super low income people that basically aren't working, getting welfare and stuff. And then there's, the working poor who get nothing, And then, a bunch of us. And then, so it's kind of like, I think the government tries to help where, with in the most obvious pain points and everything, elderly, Because they're out, they can't go back out and work again. So at least maybe if you're young, you can work 2 or 3 jobs. But if you're 78, you're like, I can't work, So I think it's kind of like you go to that most vulnerable.
Some people are retired and
Yeah.
forced to go back.
Yeah, but like being on the Human Services Funding Committee too, it's like, the thing is helping the most vulnerable populations. So it's the children and elderly and, disabled. And so that's kind of like where we're starting with the most vulnerable, which I'd say would, one of those categories is the elderly. So,
Yeah, it's just a shame that, the younger people end up having to move out of town, because they can't afford, but, that's all part of living.
yeah, it's an unfair world.
Okay, so is that it?
Mark, are you gonna crunch some numbers
I
you were
will,
talking
yeah.
about? Because I was gonna say, because my thought was I could take the list of exemptions and average them, and you were gonna run a different set of numbers.
Yeah, I
You were
have
gonna
all
look at the
different things I
year's
was gonna-
history, yeah. So maybe next we'll correlate that data and and send it out ahead of time. And we're gonna meet
Yeah, so we
same,
can sit down with the numbers,
yeah, sit down and really like dig into
the
like
numbers to look at.
the averages, yeah. And we're meeting at the same time next month.
It's on there, yeah.
Okay,
Is it?
And why are we
is there
meeting
an
later
agenda?
to,
March 19th.
for,
okay.
Because
like,
we're-
people
we're
that don't
probably
come.
still live right now, so. Are we adjourning the meeting right now?
yeah.
Yeah, meetings adjourned.
Okay, can move to adjourn.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government